بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أما بعد, أحبتي في الله, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam has said, leave those things, or what means leave those things which don't concern you. And that's really a qaida shar'iyya, and it's a principle in the shar' of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because if you busy yourself with those things that don't concern you, you can destroy your deen, and you can enter into doubtful issues, or you could fall into egregious sins like lying and distorting the truth, claiming about people what is not true, or just being unjust. So I wanted to address a comment from one of our brothers, may Allah bless us in him and guide us in him and forgive us in him, that he commented about the speech, the short sitting, if you will, when I was talking about Ustad Abu Tamiya. So it seems to be a lot of controversy with people, that people are very attached to personalities and attached to individuals, and really there's a lot of qaida hizbiyya, there's a lot of hizbi-based principles that are spread, unfortunately, and sometimes by some of our brothers and sisters that are supposed to be on the dawah or claim to be on the dawah to Ahl Sunnah, the dawah to Salafiyya. So there are those who spread principles such as the guilt by association. So they take some athar of the Salaf and they do as the takfiris do, and the takfiris make silsila takfir, meaning that they say, well, you were associated with this person, we declared him to be a kafir, so you're a kafir. The imam who prayed in the masjid, led the salat, is a kafir. The mueddin is a kafir and a munafiq, and this, it goes on. So this is what they call silsila fi takfir. This is like you do a chain reaction, if you will, of takfir. So one thing, I just want to clarify a few things about me, because I can't clarify a lot about other people. And that I am not a person who rushes to take people off the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, especially if they have a usul i'tiqad ahl sunnah, and they have a history of calling to the book and the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this is what my scholars taught us, and I believe that that's just, and that's what I believe that the nusus, the texts, show us, and that's what we read these books, so many books in Athar of the Salaf, and the way, the manhaj of the Salaf, the methodology of the Salaf, on how they dealt with innovators, meaning people who have pure innovation, versus people who have a lighter innovation. Most of the time in a lot of the books that we read, we have plenty right in front of us, a lot of those narrations are in reference to people who had very strong bid'ah. They had some tashayyi', they were, like Shia, in their orientation, or they had, some takfir, they were maybe Khawarij, or they were maybe Mu'tazila or Ashari, or they were some extreme Sufi, a part of a Sufi Turk, or something like this. So a lot of those narrations, people, they want to try to apply those and nitpick on individuals who may not even be mubtadi'ah, but they differ with them, or one of their scholars, or one of the tulab al-ilm, or whoever, has declared someone to be a mubtadi'ah, so a lot of the people blind follow and they rush to take someone off the sunnah. So these are dangerous masail for us to get into, and we've done it. I have years of content talking about those dangers in kalam from the kibar ulama, like Imam Fawzan, with Imam bin Baz, with Imam Al-Albani وإمام مقبل وإمام you know كثير من علمائنا, you know, موجود الكلام. It's there if you want to research it. But if you want to take your opinion and your view and from your local طالب العلم or طويلب العلم, then that's your choice. So I've never been one to really force people to take my view or to take a position. And some years back, someone, I've been asked several times about Sheikh Yahya al-Hajooree. May Allah guide us in him. And the interesting thing, although I said what I said about him, I said I don't feel comfortable taking knowledge. And the last time I went to Yemen, I didn't want, you know, I considered going to Damaj, but then I thought, well, no, I'm studying what I see here, and I see some issues that Sheikh Yahya and some of the scholars in Medina, they advised me, who I trust, they're my mashayikh, and their knowledge and the dalil. And that's one of the things we have to understand, that when we get into these issues, we should always look to the dalil if you have. So if I say something about someone, bi'idnillah, I'm trying to do it mabni ala dalil. I don't usually get very involved in just saying my sheikh said, my sheikh said, my sheikh said, even though I love my mashayikh. But I don't, because my mashayikh, they, unfortunately, some of them have differed with one another. And not just differed, but some of them have even reached the point of making tabdi of one another. So I'm not obligated to follow them blindly. And we're obligated to still, as they taught us, to follow the dalil. So that's why I want to say those things first and foremost. So when it comes to what I said about Sheikh Yahya years ago, and as you see, I still refer to him as Sheikh Yahya. I don't take the position and don't feel comfortable, you know, even though I have my personal position in reasons for why I didn't want to go back to Damaj, or that I thought Sheikh Yahya had some issues. I'm sure that if you comb through the content that I've put out there, I've never said that Sheikh Yahya, I never came out and said he's a mubtadi'ah, even though I said I didn't feel comfortable taking knowledge from him. And I mentioned some of the reasons and some of the hizbiyah that was going on up there, unfortunately. And so with that being the case, people make so much speculation based upon that. So some people say you're mumayya and you didn't make a clear position, you didn't declare him to be a mubtadi'ah. And then some people say you are whatever because you don't accept Sheikh Yahya, or you don't blind follow. And a lot of times it's people who are blind following. This is the problem. There's a problem with some of the people in our dawah, is they make taqleed of the manhaj of the Ahl Tasawwuf, of the people of Sufiya. Because Imam Muqbil, who was the Imam there in Yemen during this past 20 years or so, rahmatullah alayhi, rahmatun wasi'ah, he was not like that. Look at it, listen to his tapes yourself. Go to his books yourself, and you'll see he was a shidd nas ala ta'assub. He was very much against this blind following and this blind prejudice. Wallahi, Imam Muqbil was an amazing man, rahmatullah alayhi, rahmatin wasi'ah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him with Jannat and Na'im. But not all the people who followed him afterwards were the same. Bell, I would say, as far as the caliber and knowledge, none of them. Even though I love many of the mashayikh in Yemen, their caliber, no one has taken the place of Imam Muqbil, rahmatullah alayhi, and he was the father and the scholar of all those scholars that we love now, and some of them who maybe have deviated or went into some ghulu, some extremism, and so forth. So that's one of the things I wanted to kind of clear the airs. We have to be careful of this tabdi' by association. So many people, wallahi, I don't understand the joy of that. I mean, maybe when I was younger, that I was not really like that. I don't think I was really, you know, I did like those issues, tabdi' and who's on it, who's off it, but I did not believe in lying and cheating and deception, the kind of way some of the people have taken. And some of the people take it as an entertainment. We didn't take it as entertainment. We did not take those things as entertainment. And I never thought that those were things of entertainment. I thought it was very serious if you depart from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, or you declare someone to be an innovator. Okay, that it's very serious. And that means that somebody whose usul is generally that of Ahl Sunnah, but maybe they made a mistake, or it's just the view of a personal, it could be a personal issue that has arisen between ulama or between students of knowledge, and that could be simply the reason why they begin to declare one another mubtadi'ah. This is wrong. So we have to understand first that's not Salafiyah. That's wrong. Because Salafiyah is built on justice. And its masdar is the book and the sunnah. And I shouldn't even have to say this, as I've said it 1,000 times, and I've literally have 500 plus videos in one file on this channel talking about what it means to be Salafi or something like this. Okay. And it's talking about a lot of these issues over the past few years. So the dawah to Ahl Sunnah is based on justice, not based on blind following. So getting to the crux of even why it came on here, he posted a thing. He said, "I'm shocked at this coming from you because you clearly said you saw extremism from Sheikh Yahya." Okay, that's fair. That's fair, because I did say I saw extremism, and that's why I didn't feel comfortable taking knowledge. You're right. That's good. The video's still on your channel, and I'm still saying what I said. So why do you now encourage taking knowledge from someone who praises the same Sheikh Yahya, who you said was extreme to take knowledge from? Fear Allah, it's not permissible to take knowledge from those who praise innovators. Like, again, the guilt by association. SubhanAllah, you know what's interesting? This was the second time I met Abu Taymiyyah, and it was in Medina. And Sheikh Yahya, I think he had just ran into Sheikh Yahya, who he studied with in Yemen, and who I sat for a limited time with in Yemen, because he was there leading a lot of the durus, because Sheikh Muqbil was sick a lot of the times. So the interesting thing is Abu Taymiyyah had just mentioned to me, because it was at the book fair, it was like the second time we met, and he said to me, we happened to run into each other like after Maghrib, and the Ma'rid Kitab, the book fair, was at the Islamic University of Medina, and it was time for Salat. Of course, I had piles of books as usual, and I think he had some books too. And he had just mentioned, he was praising Sheikh Yahya. He said, "Oh, I just saw my Sheikh Yahya, and he's this," and he was mentioning a lot of things. And I kept more or less silent, but I had no problem with that. For me, that was not like, oh, I got to disassociate myself from Abu Taymiyyah now. I've never been on that, because one of the things from a point of logic, before we get, I'm not even going to get into a lot of this because I've done countless work on this. Take it or leave it. But from the perspective of logic, and as many of the scholars have mentioned as well, it's impossible for you to have ittifaq on every individual. It is impossible. Tell me. And this is why you see some of the excessive splitting, because some of the people don't know how to deal with differences. So, for example, if you say, for example, my view, I kept silent. It wasn't my place. He knew about that controversy there. He saw what he saw from Sheikh Yahya, and he felt like that was good. And he saw the water. And I saw what he said about Sheikh Yahya, the things that he was mentioning in his praise were actually things that I had personally observed when I was in Damaj, and when I would see Sheikh Yahya sometimes in Sana'a, that he was very humble. The Yemeni Mashayikh, you'll see that humility. But what I also found is, unfortunately, some of the extremism that Sheikh Yahya, unfortunately, had gotten away from what Imam Muqbil was calling to. And this was one of the reasons for the many splits between the Salafis in Yemen, So how to deal with differences is imperative. So the fact that Usaid Abu Taymiyyah praised Sheikh Yahya, that really honestly meant nothing to me. And it really meant nothing. It didn't take away from my deen. It didn't add to my deen. It didn't take away from my view of him, nor did it add to it. But rather I saw, okay, he saw a Sheikh, he saw that tasawwur, he saw some positive with Sheikh Yahya. He loves the Sheikh because he studied with him, of course. But I saw some other things, and I saw the adillah, and I made my judgment based on evidence. But I did not go out in the public and I was silent for a long time and didn't mention any of those things until it had been some years, and then people kept asking me. So I made some comments about Sheikh Yahya, and still to this day, 2023, people are still asking and saying, you said this, and they're shocked, and they're, I don't understand. They should be shocked because, and I understand why they're shocked, because they are on a methodology where it's always guilt by association. And in their world, in their tasawwur, I think they believe people have to have some sort of perfection, because no one is free from mistakes. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Kullu ibn Adam khata, wa khayra khata'ina tawwabun." All the children of Adam commit sins or make mistakes, and the best of those who repent. So dealing with the mistakes of the scholars or between them, I'm talking about when they're legitimate or there's a akhta from an imam of Ahl Sunnah. He made a mistake and it was in the Aqidah or it was in methodology. He made a mistake, but he has a history of calling to the book and the Sunnah, but akhta fi mas'ala. There is, as the scholars mention, and you can go back to Imam Barbahari, he mentions that in the beginning of his treatise, that this one, akhta fi sabil, he made a mistake on the path. So this one, you advise him and you're patient. Now, when you say advise someone and be patient, that's going to mean something. It's subjective as far as the time. Does that mean you say it once and then now he doesn't have your opinion and he doesn't say so-and-so is off it, that now you're no longer associated with him? This is the problem. This is how the youth and some of the students of knowledge and even du'at take this. And unfortunately, there are some mashayikh who kind of propagate this as well. So their world is very black and white, but it doesn't seem like it has the nuances of the shara. And it doesn't seem like it has the nuances of adl and justice. And it doesn't have the nuances of the Sabil Salaf, Salafee-Jihaadee, ridwanullahi alayhim. But instead, it's a very harsh thing, which is impractical. Why? That's why you see the kethrata, the mini splitting between mashayikh. You would never think they would split, because they were so alike and they referred and praised one another to such an extent. But then over sometimes the most minor things, like this issue of the Sa'afaka that happened some years ago and other stuff, you saw so much splitting. That doesn't show a tamesik bi sunnah. And that doesn't show a resolution based on the book and the sunnah. Coming back to the book and the sunnah. We were patient with him, but he didn't repent from saying Sa'afaka. We were patient with them and they kept praising those Sa'afaka. Okay, all of this wildness, it has no consequence. It should not have an import on your deen. That's not going to bring you closer to Allah. And when you face death, none of that is going to mean anything. Your deen has priorities. So it's not for us as small students of knowledge and for beginners and laypersons to jump into every fitna. Even the mashayikh don't get into every fitna. How many times can you tell me anything? I wonder, can anyone bring me a quote? Because I've never heard anything from Imam Fawzan, who all the mashayikh who got in that Sa'afaka stuff, okay, and made a big deal out of it, he's aware of that. Don't think that people didn't call that imam. Have you ever heard that imam speak about it? He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to, because he knows that splitting and that wasting of time is not what the general people need, nor do the students of knowledge need that. They should busy themselves with ilm. And this is what all the mashayikh, you hear this countless, and especially the most respected imma to sunnah, you see that they call the people, get back to knowledge. Atlab al-ilm. The talib al-ilm should not busy himself with that. The talib al-ilm should not busy the people with that. But this is not what you see from some of the people. Unfortunately, we have du'at in the West who are just figureheads, and that's what they do. They propagate fitna. And it's a sad travesty, because some of them have knowledge that they studied. There's some of them, they graduated from al-Qura, PhD, or as masters, and other brothers who stayed in Damaj 15, 20 years and stuff like this. Well, where's the thamarat al-ilm? Where's the benefit of the knowledge for the people? Have you just caused more splitting between Ahl Sunnah and the Salafis? Have you made al-wala wal-bara based on, for example, I love Sheikh Ibrahim Rahili. I benefited from him. And I see some things that I don't agree with. He's a sheikh. He's like anyone, yusibu yukhti, in that sense. He makes mistakes. He gets things correct. But I don't have blind ta'asub. There are people who are friends of mine who don't like the sheikh. I honestly don't care. They have their mawqif. If their mawqif is based on how they understand the adillah, my mawqif is based on how I understand the evidence. I looked at what the sheikh said. I looked in his books. I looked at his responses. I saw those who criticized him, and I saw what they said. And I have many of their books. Every book about that issue I have, because I was deeply studying with the Sheikh at the time when some of that fitna came out, when Sheikh Mohammed bin Hadi was saying some of the things he was saying. May Allah forgive us and him. Okay? So the thing is the fitna will never stop. So how you deal with it, are you ping pong balled and you have to take your, what are you supposed to do when, okay, you respect Sheikh Rabi, you respect Sheikh Mohammed bin Hadi, they're both your mashayikh, you go to this one's house, you go to this one's sitting, Sheikh Ibrahim Rahili, this one, Imam Abdul Mahsan Al-Abad, this one, and there's all these differences. So what do? You're supposed to look at the adillah. And even in looking at the adillah, that doesn't mean you have to make al-wala wal-bara, loving and hating based on these issues. That's the point. That's a very important point I want to mention. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Tamiya outlines this extensively and beautifully. And even Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahhab, rahimahullah ta'ala, outlines this and talks about ta'assub and of course, Imam Ibn al-Qayyim as well, rahmatullahi alayhi. Countless things in his book, I'lam al-Muwaqqi'een, in many of his treatises, he talks about this. He goes into it about why, not having this partisanship and this love and hate, even according to your teacher and even according to your sheikh. So if you can get away from this blind prejudice and this black and white configuration at looking at people and looking at masail that come up and issues and mistakes, wallah, you'll be healthier in your deen. I don't get shaken anymore that Sheikh so-and-so and Sheikh so-and-so fell out. It doesn't really matter to me. I'll look at the evidence if I have time, if it's something worth even looking into. And that's the whole thing going to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that we mentioned in the beginning. If it's even worth going into, and I might say, well, why does Sheikh, who's an imam to us, who we love, Imam Fawzan, say this about Sheikh so-and-so? What was his critique? Why did he say that? Well, let's look at what the imam said. That would be for myself. I wouldn't go out and put that out in the public because most of us don't need that in the West. That's not what we need to get involved in. Someone posted something about Sheikh Abdulaziz Al-Rais. That had nothing to do with our talk even. Even the topics. It wasn't even an external conversation. Sheikh so-and-so said he's murjia. So-and-so shadid irja. This and that. I don't know what that has to do with anything. How do you even know I take from the Sheikh? What does it have to do with anything that we're having a conversation? We're talking about fiqh. We were talking about fiqh. And then someone says, this one said, and Hajooree said, and this one, and what about this? It's bizarre. Some people, you wonder, how are you going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if that is all you busy yourself with? Now, maybe there's some people who don't busy themselves only with that. Hopefully they busy themselves with their ibadah and coming closer to Allah and the khair. But you don't want to be a source of fitna and discord between Ahlul Sunnah, even if you don't regard so many mashayikh of Ahlul Sunnah as Ahlul Sunnah anymore. You've already taken them off, or you've taken one opinion. Imam Abdulaziz Al-Raji says this about so-and-so, this. Okay, if you can look into those issues, and that's the duty of the Talib al-Ilm, is not to ping pong and go like this. So you'll see great imams that maybe they made a mistake. Maybe their speech was taken out of context, or vice versa with a younger mashayikh, or whatever the case may be. The point is you want to look at adillah. You don't want to be always, well, Sheikh so-and-so said he's this, so that means you shouldn't quote from him, or you need to write that off. Why don't you advise people to come on the broadcast? Why don't you advise so-and-so because he praised this sheikh way over here on the right? That's not my thing. Is it a serious, does he have that aqidah that you say is a mukhalifa aqidah? And minhaj, does he have the methodology that's mukhalifa? If he does, then yeah, that's something that needs to be addressed. But if not, if he just doesn't agree about the tabdi' of someone, again, that tabdi' needs to be based on adillah, not based on just blind prejudice, ta'assub, and personalities, and feel-good medicine, and loving and hate what one scholar says, or two or three or four or five scholars say. Okay, don't make your awwal bara based on that. That was just something I wanted to mention to our brother, may Allah forgive us and him, who was really concerned about me making a video about Abu Taymiyyah and just the fact that Abu Taymiyyah takes from Sheikh Yahya al-Hajooree. Okay, I honestly don't care. I'm looking at what the brother is producing. You know, if I saw that he had traits, some negative traits of extremism, then I would say, okay, well, that's a problem. Or if I saw that he had negative traits of Tamiya, so to speak, that he's throwing away the Qawa'id and Usul of Ahl Sunnah and the principle of Ahl Sunnah, then that would be a problem. Other than that, Ahl Sunnah yahkum al-Zahir. They judge by what is apparent. And they don't become spies and have to go and rush to collect and look and comb the books for people's mistakes and comb the tapes for people's mistakes. Okay? Because if you do that, you will find a mistake with everyone except probably yourself. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, to accept our good and forgive our evil. Bless us with ikhlas, wa thabat ala sunnat nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wa sallallahu wa sallam, ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Isn't Al-Hajooree a disciple of Sheikh Muqbil? Naam, Yahya Al-Hajooree was one of the major students of Sheikh Muqbil. But again, when someone is a student of someone, that doesn't mean that they took everything from that person, okay? Or that doesn't mean that their actions or their usul or whatever is exactly the same. So if you were to say, for example, what would be a much better example, so-and-so was in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he was a hypocrite. Do we say he was on the deen of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? No, we don't. I'm not saying that Sheikh Yahya is like that, but what I'm saying is the point is, even if someone is a student of someone or they saw someone, and Sheikh Yahya was definitely a major student of Sheikh Muqbil, that's why he took over Damaj, but that doesn't mean he didn't fall into errors and mistakes that Sheikh Muqbil did not have. So that's the point. That's what you have to realize. Someone can differ with their scholar. No one is, a carbon copy for the most part. That is the history of the scholars and the sunnah of mankind, that we differ. You can't say, oh, my mother was like this, so I'm like her in every way, or my father. No, that's not even the reality of most people. Akramakum Allah. Now, so that's what we would say about that. May Allah help us. So I'll try to answer these next questions in just a second, if you give me 1 second. Now, alhamdulillah. So why exactly is he warned against? Those are big issues as far as that, and it depends on who you are taking from. as far as the sheikh being warned against. There's a lot of data. What I would say is, if you really are concerned about that, then I would say you can find probably online. You can find some, especially if you know Arabic. Then I would say there's tons of information out there that you can rely on, so you can go to the sources and see what mashayikh and what were some of the issues. Why did they warn against him? Things like that. If that's really something important to you, then I would say then that's where you should go with. If you are only an English speaker, I don't even understand how that issue would necessarily be important, because Sheikh Yahya doesn't speak a word of English, from what I recall. He doesn't speak any English. You're not going to be able to listen to his lectures except for what those people who are some of his students might translate for you or something like that. So you won't even be. It's not a major concern. But if you know Arabic, you can go into those, and you can go in some of the issues and why a lot of the mashayikh in Medina and otherwise, and of course the Yemeni mashayikh that are on the ground. Almost all the known mashayikh, I'm talking about the big players in Yemen, they warn against Sheikh Yahya. They are not with him anymore in Yemen. There may be a few, but they're not the ones who are well known internationally in the same way, like Sheikh Mohammed Al Imam, Sheikh Abdulaziz Abari, Sheikh Abdullah Mar'i, Sheikh Abdurrahman Mar'i, rahmatullah alayh, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Wahhab al-Wasabi, rahmatullah alayh, and kathir. They, have left, and that was unfortunate. The unfortunate splitting that they could not make reconciliation for some of these issues, and it just caused further fitna, if you will. So those are big fitan that unfortunately split the dawah in Yemen and around the world for those who are affected by those issues. Now, yeah, no one is safe. Yes, but that's the reality. Even no matter who you are, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, that's the scary thing is, it's greater than what you're saying, is us as individuals. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Inna ahadakum liya'mala bi'amala ahl al-jannah hatta ma yakun baynahu wa baynaha ila dhira'an fayusbiqu alayhi al-kitab fay'amala bi'amala ahl al-nar fayudkhilaha." The Prophet ﷺ said, "And one of you will be a arm span from paradise, and then what was written will overcome him, and he will do, he was doing the deeds of paradise, and then he will do the deeds of the hellfire and will enter it." So it lets us know that really the ibra, the end result, the most important thing is how you die, what state you die in. Doesn't mean there were people who did some great works in Islam, and some of them left Islam. They left Islam. There's a very famous scholar from Qasim, or he's done some very strong some works, and the scholars made takfir of him at the end of his life because he left. I think he migrated to the UK, and he left Islam. He became a writer of like modernism and all kind of things, and he wrote some very serious treatises during his time, when he was younger in Saudi. So this can happen. It can happen. That guidance is not. No one has a pure ticket. The thing is, you have to strive continually to remain guided. And someone can be a student of whoever and become misguided. The scholar himself can become misguided. That's why we always pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ihdina sirata mustaqim, guide us to the straight path. Guide us to the straight path. You have to beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with sincerity for guidance, and for sincerity and thabat ala sunnah, to be firm on the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Inshallah. May Allah bless us with tawfiq and forgive us all. Ameen. Yeah, no one is safe. May Allah. Ya munqalib al-qulub, thabit qulubana ala dinak. Sheikh Ali Hassan al-Halabi, al-Hajooree, Muhammad bin Hadi, etc. How can we call our parents to the correct aqidah and minhaj? How do we deal with the troubles and harms in the process? For example, if the father is defiant in following his forefathers. All you have to remember, you're not responsible for the end result of anyone. Okay? All you can do, like the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is deliver the message. You can be that source of guidance. That's why you should not become super invested as far as when you say, well, so and so, I'm establishing the proof on him. I've been guiding him. I've been giving him lectures to leave Yasir Qadi or to leave this one or leave. No, you're not responsible. You can share the knowledge, try to be a source of guidance, but the guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you don't carry that burden. You did the wajib, you shared. So with your parents, of course, you want more. You're even more trying to get them to be away from any kind of shirk and kufriyat or whatever. So all you can do is with kindness, gentleness, and respect, deliver the message of Tawheed. Call them to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and call them to leave away anything that's kufr or shirk or bid'ah or what have you. So you have to do that with respect and patience with your parents and elders especially. And we just talked about that a bit recently. How are things? How are you in the Institute? Long time no see. So after the Institute, we're still trying to keep it going, keep alive. We'll just see. I'm going to have to pay for the hosting in July. So if I'm unable to, then I will just have to shut it for a while or whatever. I'll have to go with whatever. It just depends on what the interest is. If there's an interest and there's people enrolling, alhamdulillah. If there's not, alhamdulillah. There's other places to study. So that's where we are currently. We're still trying to produce and get more content up to the best of our ability. But it is hard to be really more or less a one-man show. It's very difficult. May Allah bless us with ikhlas, with tabat, with tawfiq. Ameen. There's one big German Salafi dawah organization which promotes Al-Adawi, Al-Ulwan, Al-Tarifi, and their likes. No one has been warning against them so far. Should me and a brother start doing so? No, you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. If you don't have the knowledge and there is no, if these people are spreading a harm, okay? Because if you were to go to most of your Muslim communities, you're going to find that most of the people take knowledge from all kind of sources and people. So your whole time would be refutations and you would be doing no benefit. If you want to benefit the dawah, then invite the people with ilm and basira if you have the knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge, then you're not in a position to really change much of anything. But if you do, if you're a student of knowledge, then maybe you need to open up your durus, open up some durus, call to the book and the sunnah. Okay. But as far as making that your goal, you've got to bring this organization down because they are calling to some people maybe that have some takfir, or they have some of this, they have some doubts, they have some aspects of the usul of Ahl Sunnah, because I don't know all the individuals you just mentioned. I don't necessarily see that as them being Salafi is necessary. You call them Salafi, but I don't know how that fits in, because some of them, like Ulwan, and others, may have some issues of takfir even, okay? Some extremism and akhta in those masail that many of the scholars have spoken about with Hujja wa Burhan and Bayan. So, no, your goal should not be that. Your goal should be to spread the correct aqidah, and then the people will move away from that if you have the ability to do so. If not, then you yourself need to just work on yourself and seek knowledge until you have the ability to hopefully call others. So focus on that. That's the primary focus. Is not, as our sheikh mentions, that there's a saying in Arabic, and some of you who are Arab might know this, but it basically means, I won't be able to quote it in Arabic, but it has to do with the zabib, basically becoming a ripe fruit before its time. Okay, and they use zabib in there. And it's in reference to that there are many people, they want to, for example, change a munkar, they want to do something, want to do talab al-ilm, but they haven't, or they want to not do talab al-ilm, but they want to give dawah to someone, but they don't even have the prerequisites of knowledge. They haven't ripened themselves to where they're in a position to do that. You can't start refuting people, and you have no knowledge. You don't know what to call, you don't know the haqq from batin, because you're only going to know that through talab al-ilm, okay? So it's not just knowing about, well, I know he made a mistake in this issue, and I know you need to be able to call the people to something. And I'll tell you something that was a very interesting lesson that I had early on in my studies when I went to Yemen. And I remember my Arabic was very limited, but especially I'd only spent a little bit of time in Damaj. But I had that, like a lot of us, we had the hamasa. We were very excited and we want to correct everything that we see. So I'm in there, I'm in Masajid in Yemen, and there might be some Hizbi, or might be a Hizbi masjid or a masjid that's kind of associated with the Ikhwan Muslimin. Okay, their Aqidah may be sound, but they had some methodological issues. So then I'm sitting there with very little Arabic trying to correct. And I can remember someone saying, you need to learn how to read the Quran. You need to learn Arabic language. What are you talking about? Oh, Zindani or whoever is like this, whoever like that. If you don't have the tools, then you shouldn't even be entering in those things. It's enough. Leave it to those A'imma. Imam Muqbil already did the job for you. And many of his students that are scholars, they did the job for you. You don't have to just be a puppet or a copycat or a parakeet to articulate that, because you may be doing more damage than good, because here you don't even know the Arabic language and you're trying to correct people who that's their native tongue. You can't even articulate the wrongs or the rights correctly. You understand? So it's so important to wait till you're ripe before you begin to get into issues that are more complex and detailed, because you don't want to get into the issue of speaking without knowledge and speaking. How many mistakes have we made over the years? May Allah forgive us. And maybe speaking about people's honor unjustly without the right to do so, meaning unjustly. So those are things you don't want to carry with you. You don't want to carry to the grave. You don't want to, it doesn't hurt you. It doesn't take away from your Salafiyah to be silent. That's actually an honorable trait of the Salaf. You leave it to those who have the itqan, who have the strength in those areas. There's already people out there from Ahl Sunnah who are taking up that mantle. So it's not that everybody has to speak about a mukhalif and everybody has to get into those issues. It's not for everyone. Those are intricate masail. That means you have to know the difference between haqq and batil. That means you have to know between bid'ah and sunnah. You have to know the issue that the mukhalif has made a mistake in. You have to know there's masail after masail after masail it requires knowledge. And then it requires fiqh and wisdom, hikmah. To know when is it ripe to speak? When is it appropriate? Is it always just appropriate just to speak about someone? Oh, you mentioned Yasser Qadhi, so I've got to correct him. I've got to mention. No. But maybe those people that listen to him, maybe because they now trust me, will allow me to speak in the masjid and give them the sunnah. People like the clear, clean sunnah. There's a lot of people, they respect that. But if you go immediately trying to think, that you are commanding the good and forbidding the evil by talking about mukhalif so-and-so, someone who they deeply love and already have blind following to and allegiance to, you're probably not going to get very far in the dawah to them. So is your purpose to guide them and to be a source of good? Or are you just trying to, I just want to establish a proof. I just want to make sure this whole community knows that I don't agree and I know so-and-so is a mubtadi'ah and he's a mubtadi'ah. They're not going to accept from you aslan. You understand? So you want to know, part of fiqh fi din is you want to have some success. You want to have a hadith. There needs to be a sharia-based goal, not to prove that you're better or prove something like this. It should be to rectify the people. And sometimes it might be through not even engaging in those issues, but giving the people the haqq. Because now that they trust you and allow you, who is Salafi, who calls to the book and the sunnah unwavering bi'idnillah ta'ala, then now you have a majal to really reach the people. But if you go in speaking about people they already have an affection and affinity for and love, well, you're probably not going to be very successful in your dawah and you won't even be able to do any dawah. So which one has greater maslahah? Which one is better for the people? Because that's what dawah is. Dawah isn't, we're not like the Yahud. We don't sit, just 4 or 5 people and we hold knowledge. Nah. Dawah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we call to the book and the sunnah, and we want everyone to get that. to the best of our ability. If people want to differ with that, then that's on them. But you did your job. Bi'idhnillah ta'ala. So that's what our goal is. I don't know, I got a little off topic, but inshallah, hopefully there was benefit in it. Bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Have you ever thought about going on to platforms? The German dawah is a topic itself, way far behind. And Al-Albani would be a ni'mah. Alhamdulillah, I know there's definitely students of knowledge, and I can remember a brother who came to the Maj, may Allah bless him, and I hope he's okay. I don't remember his name, but I remember when he came, but he stayed, he was just like, whoa, this was, because this was in the early days when there's hyenas and these crazy bugs coming out of your ceiling and all this stuff. And he went back to Germany, and then he said he was going to go to study in Egypt. He said, this is too harsh of an environment. They should have told us what this was going to be like. May Allah bless us in him. But alhamdulillah, he was on the dawah, But I'm sure there's students of knowledge and mashayikh. There's got to be in Germany. Come on. Especially in Europe, you've got all over around there, Whoops. Here there's two at DMG. Okay, Abu Hamza. I think he's referring to Bilal Phillips. What are your thoughts on Sheikh Ahsan Hanif, who's a student of Sheikh Abdul Masin al-Abad and graduated from Jamiat and Imam Green, but also associated with Al-Maghrib? I can't have much of an opinion on him if I don't know him. I know who he is. I've seen him doing the Green Lane lectures on YouTube and stuff like that. But I don't know. If he's a student of knowledge that's calling to the book, calling to the Sunnah, calling to the Minhaj of the Salaf, then we love him. If he's calling to other than that, then I would say don't listen to him. So you have to make those decisions based on what you see of mukhalifat or what you see from people who know him and study with him or, have a hukam for him. I don't know a lot of those brothers like that. I've emailed you an entire essay highlighting the mukhalafat of Ibn Hazm with Ahl Sunnah. It's written by Sheikh Abdurrahman al-Sudais since you asked for evidences. Okay, good. Thank you. Yeah, I'll check it out. I have many books about that, about Imam Ibn Hazm as well, and his issues, as well as many of the other scholars from Ahl Sunnah that are still, the scholars refer to them as Ahl Sunnah, but yet they had mistakes in Aqidah. So I think those are beautiful issues for the layperson to understand that just because someone does a bid'ah, even in their usul, what did Khalid, did you say that? I said it. Even in their usul, that doesn't not necessitate taking them off the Sunnah. And there is ample adilla, and I've done tons of videos on it, so I'm not even going to really, I'll give you one example, okay? Imam Abu Khuzaymah, rahmatullahi alayhi, rahmatin wasi'ah, and he wrote a book, a Tawheed. It's about Tawheed, al-Asma'i wa Sifat, and so forth. And many of the scholars in the past, up until now, Salafi scholars, like just Kathir, but I'll just say in the contemporary times, like one of the statements, Shaykhana, Sheikh Saleh al-Suhaimi mentions about him, and just Kathir. There's a lot of narrations and aqwal from the Ahl al-Ilm about Imam Abu Khuzaymah, that he was an Imam of the Sunnah, but he made a mistake in this hadith. And it was a serious Aqidah mistake, but no one belittled him and took him off the Sunnah. They say he's an Imam of Ahl Sunnah, lakin akhta Abu Khuzaymah. Abu Khuzaymah made a mistake in the hadith of Sur, about about a very important hadith in Aqidah, which is a very Anyway, it's a very serious hadith. But Abu Khuzaymah made a mistake in that. And there's tons of examples. And Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah discusses this in depth in a lot of his treatises. And you can go to his book, A'lam, Rafa A'lam, I can't think of the rest of the title. But it's a well-known book. He talks about the mistakes of the scholars, the reasons a lot of the scholars made mistakes, and how we look at those mistakes, and that, you know, that doesn't necessitate taking them off the sunnah. Because if we did, we would have no one to really listen to, because everybody makes mistakes. There are those people who make lots of mistakes. Their usul is not that of Ahl Sunnah, but we're talking about those people whose usul is Ahl Sunnah, like an akhta fi mas'ala. He akhta fi mas'ala, even in Aqidah. So this is how many of the scholars talk about Imam An-Nawawi, Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, and a lot of A'imma. Okay? I personally don't know of any of our scholars making tabdi' of Ibn Hazm, because they have his book, they read his book, but they mentioned that he, you know, he was Zahiri and he had some issues in Aqidah, you know, but perhaps there is. But as far as Imam An-Nawawi, I don't know anybody except for the Haddadiyya who do that. So, you know, Allah knows best. May Allah help us. You're going to have to ask S-Pubs about be upon clarity. The better ways to form a study. I don't know any tulab or mashayikh in Germany. Many takfiris. Do you mean Brother Amir al-Kinani? I don't know. I don't know who he is. The best way to get married, if you're a revert and your community not help due to tribalism and racism. The best way, for one, you need to make sure that you are known in that community, meaning known for good. So there are those real issues of tribalism and racism. So now with the wasa'il, the various means of getting married, there's so many other ways and platforms. The reality is there are many websites that you can use. You know, you want to be careful with the websites, but those are means. I'm not going to discourage anybody from using them in a halal fashion, not, you know, seeing sisters' pictures and all that stuff, unless you're intended to marry them. But those are real legitimate ways of getting married, because it can be difficult. You can be isolated in many communities. I was just talking to some of our brothers who are incarcerated, and I told them, I said, listen, may Allah bless us and you, but you're going to deal with some real issues now, especially when you guys get out. So please don't get discouraged. Please keep on the sunnah to the best of your ability and advance yourself, but know and understand your brothers and sisters, there's going to be pushback. There's going to be people who might not accept you because you guys, you're locked up. You're tatted all over your face and stuff. So understand they're going to be scared of you. There's going to be prejudice towards you. Like these brothers I'm talking about, a lot of them are Hispanic. They're Mexican. They're Mexican-American. And so they are going to experience racism. So, you know, you want them to feel comfortable when they get out. So I try to do my best to, if I can, if I have any contacts, but those are real struggles. So those are real issues that we deal with as reverts a lot of times, new to the deen and so forth, with being accepted in larger Muslim communities. You know, there are real issues that happen. There's prejudice, there is racism, there is tribalism, there's all those things. And there is other issues to deal with, contend with too. You know, and it can be both ways. There could be brothers that have mental issues, brothers who have really serious issues, that how could you expect someone to give you their daughter? So you've got to also look at yourself too. I'm not saying you personally that you have any issues, but I'm saying we've got to look at ourselves. I can remember when I was a new revert and wanting to get married, thinking, you know, having those same struggles, thinking, you know, why this, why that? But when I was a new revert for the first couple of years, I had dreadlocks. Well, I probably would maybe have a little discrimination myself if someone was coming with dreads to my daughter. You know, that's my life is different now. So I might not be accepting of that. That's not, I want and expect certain things because of the background of my daughters. You know, she's, on the sunnah, has that kind of tarbiyah. So that's what you gotta look at these things in a variety of ways. But if you have those experiences of racism and tribalism, then you do need to move on to maybe a more friendly community, even as far as getting married. And you need to be known. You got to understand, you need to be known in any community for someone to vouch for you and say, yeah, oh yeah, have my daughter or have my sister or, get married. Come and get married in the community. We're going to give you one of our sisters. I'm the wali for sister so-and-so. Yeah, come on. No, they don't know you. That should be expected anywhere. You've got to make sure you're known. They need to know. Check, are you a person of violence? Do you have a background? Are you mentally stable? Are you, whatever, all the kind of issues. People can't just give someone unknown and then you're going to expect that people are going to give you sisters from their community or whatever the case may be. So you've got to take all those things in consideration. But I would say is you need to be in a more revert-friendly community, perhaps, where you can be introduced to a sister, from the imam or someone who's responsible for the sisters in a community, or even, yes, through the internet, through the websites, the Muslim marital websites and stuff, and be careful of the mukhalafat in those websites. So that's what I can say about that now. Okay, what's the best way? Don't you mean Ibn Khuzaymah, not Abu Khuzaymah? Yes, Ibn Khuzaymah. No, sorry. Most active dua in NROW. I don't know what that is. Some Northwestern. A lot of blah, 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 blah. Maybe in the... More in the... A brother said he is very emotionally sick due to seeing his family in constant major sins. And he imagines them in the hellfire. He gets depressed and procrastinates a lot due to this. Any advice? Well, I would say to that brother of course, that affects the heart. It affects the heart. A lot of us, we have family that's not even Muslim. So, that is, very, and it should affect the heart and it should depress you. It should make you more haris, more vigilant in calling them and inviting them to Islam. Okay, that's what it should do. It should activate you to invite them and show them a good example of what it means to be a Muslim and invite them with kindness and gentleness. Those things that are going to draw them and attract them to Islam. So that's what you want to do. Or attract them to the Sunnah if that's the issue. May Allah help us and protect us. You know what I mean? Can one look through an album of pictures of a sister for the purpose of marriage? Now, I don't know how you're going to see an album unless she's got her things out in the public. So you want to be very careful of a sister who has her things out in the public in the first place like that. So that's what I can say to that. May Allah help us and protect us. I mean. I see some da'is taking selfies and pictures of living beings like themselves without reason. Do they have evidence of this being permissible, taking pictures of humans or animals? No, of course not. This is just from a weakness in Iman. I know it's haram to lose hope in Allah, but is it haram to lose hope in your own self, but still rely on Allah? There will be a lot of contradictions, because if you have true hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're going to be striving and putting forth an effort. It's almost contradictory in some ways. Putting your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to lift you up. It should lift you up if you're really going forward and trying to and leaving your affairs with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It should not beat you down. It should not make you denigrate and destroy yourself necessarily. So you don't want to be miserable and making yourself miserable. That will not bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want to be positive. You want to be positive about what you can accomplish. You know, putting your trust and your hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have to be positive. You have to have a good positive outlook, and that's a positive outlook in your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By being negative, that makes it hard for you to do ibadah. It can make it easy for you to procrastinate. It can make you depressed. You know, you don't want to destroy yourself and beat yourself down. No. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi. What can be said about jobs like paramedic? I don't know. I'm not a paramedic, so I really don't know. I'm sure it's economic. I'm not an economics professor. I'm not an economist or anything like that. But being a paramedic is a good job. It's a job where you're going to see a lot of disturbing things. You know, any of those kind of difficult jobs where you deal with people and you deal with tragedy. So that takes a certain type of person to be able to deal with that. So yeah, of course, you are going to experience a lot of things. So you have to think about whether you have the ability, but it pays good. I think it pays pretty good. If you need Al-Albani sources, some Al-Albani sources, one of our few in the is Al-Athari. He can help to contact. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Al-Albani sources. His Al-Albani student. Yeah, I'm not really. It's a little unclear to me what you're saying there. But anyway, may Allah bless us and help us all. I've gathered a couple of young brothers in our masjid, but I'm not knowledgeable enough to teach them or become an imam for them. Can I speak without being knowledgeable and teach them? No. You can always, because you're the most knowledgeable from amongst them, inshallah ta'ala, you guys can read books together and benefit from the explanations of the scholars. You could take, for example, Al-Usul Thalatha, Ibn Uthaymeen's explanation or something, and go through it, Imam Fawzan's, and you can go through it. There's so many English resources, so you can just go through that just to revise knowledge and to build knowledge. So you have enough knowledge to teach them to the extent of your ability. That's the point. Teach them to the extent of your ability. And then that which is outside of your ability and scope, then you can ask the people of knowledge, or you can refrain from that. Okay? So you can teach to the extent of your ability. Now, and that's how you can share that knowledge, especially with new Muslims and new brothers who are just newly practicing, whatever the case may be. The thing is, they don't know English well, but so then that means if you know English well, it looks like your statements are, and you know German, then your job is going to be translating and getting the general understanding. You can take Usul al-Thalatha in English, or if you know Arabic, and do some translation, do some things, you know, even if it's in a loose sense where you're not going exactly from the text. If you don't have the ability to be translating the whole thing into German, you can say, read some of the ibarat, translate them, and just give some of the general meanings to make sure they're gaining some knowledge and grounding themselves in Tawheed, due to the extent of your ability. And that's what you can do. Now, how is someone supposed to look to imam or community for marriage if the imam is non-Salafi? Oops. And if the imam free mixes with women and takes pictures with them? Then you're probably gonna want to go to another community. Go to a community where you don't have that. If you have a community and that's the case, and you can't find a good sister there or whatever, then you will need to move on to another place. Either you can physically move, or you will, again, establishing the ties through uh, through other means, through brothers that you might know in other communities, or through through as I said, the websites. So you're going to have to look at whatever means so you can find a good, suitable spouse. Bi'idhnillah ta'ala. Now, so you're going to have to make those efforts, and that's just the reality, because it's very difficult. It's very difficult. It can be very difficult to find. Sometimes. May Allah bless us and help us. Should I first learn Arabic properly and translate Usul al-Thalatha, for example, from Arabic to German, or can I translate the book from the English language? You could translate the book from the English language, because the maqsad, the intent is to, as long as you have an accurate translation to translate from, you're going to be translating the meanings of the text. You may not translate literally from word to word, and that's just going to depend on your translation skills. But as far as you teaching, you can teach even from basic things. You don't even, Usul al-Thalatha might be still a little heavy for them. So you can go to things like books that explain the pillars of Islam and the pillars of Iman. I'm sure there's some in the German language. I'm sure that you can find free resources, because Dar es Salaam and all those places have years and years and years of experience of translating many books. Sometimes on some of the websites I've seen, they have in everything: French, German, Spanish, everything. You can find tons of books, especially about the basics of Islam, the basic Aqidah. There's an English site, and they have some very good books on there. Maybe not all the books are 100% great, but they're very good. They have in a variety of sources. Many of the books, even of the ulama, they're not associated with Dar es Salaam. I think it's, I can't remember. And they have a lot of free PDF and dawah material. And I just can't think of their name right now. But I want to say it's like Islam something. Not Islam Way, I don't think. But they have a lot of, even I find a lot of good books in Arabic sometimes. Explanations from the scholars, and just really some very good books from Ahl Sunnah. And they've got tons of stuff. I just can't think of their name, but inshallah, if I think of it, I'll try to put it up there. But there's tons. There's a lot of stuff out there nowadays. Can a person still attend such masajid if an imam is like this? Yes, if they don't have another choice. If the imam is weak or is a sinner, but you don't have another place to go, then yeah, of course. Even if they're a mubtadi'ah, you can pray there. You can pray behind them. Is it preferable? No. It's better to be in a place of Ahl Sunnah. But if Ahl Sunnah is nowhere around, there's no place to go, then you go where you can pray. As long as it's a place where they are Muslim. As long as they're Muslim. So if they're Shia or Rafida, you can't pray there. You can't pray behind them. If they are extreme Sufis and they worship the grave or something, no, you can't. And they have a grave in the masjid, or a saint dead in the masjid, or whatever, you can't pray there. If they have kufr, things that take them out of the fold of Islam, then no, you can't pray there. Pray with them. Islam House, that's it. It's Islam House, that's it. There's a lot of good stuff translated into a variety of languages. Very good. You can find excellent Arabic books there that are explained by the ulama, and you can find many translations into so many languages. Very good. There are reverts. Well, it's not just reverts. There's a lot of people who can't leave for Jumu'ah on Friday, or they get fired. Can they just pray regular dhuhr, or are they not excused? What I would say in that situation, because those are real issues that we deal with, is that a person in that situation, they should try their best, be making an honest effort to find a better job that's going to allow them, if the job is preventing them, there's possibly even a lawsuit that could maybe arise. Maybe I don't know about leaving to go to Jumu'ah. I don't know about a lawsuit for that, but especially if there's a way to make an allowance, like, okay, you're going to stay late because you do Jumu'ah. You're going to work on Saturday because you want Friday off, or, you can work out things. So that's what I would advise firstly. Secondly, if you're unable to do something like that, then a person in a situation like that, they should be making an honest effort to find a better job where they can practice their deen better. So that's what you want to do, because there's a lot of scenarios and situations that we deal with in the West that are like that. Many of us have the same struggle. If you're not working in a Muslim establishment, and even some Muslim establishments, unfortunately, but there's a lot of jobs they don't want to. It's a big deal for you to leave and have Jumu'ah and stuff like this, or to have Jumu'ah off, or to take off an hour. And that's why a lot of brothers, they rush back to work, so they have agreements with their jobs to be able to do that, or on their lunch break or whatever. So if you are in a situation where they don't allow you, then what you want to do, the next best thing, is make honest effort to be in a better situation where you can find a job where you can pray Jumu'ah. Okay, so that is a process. I don't say just quit your job immediately, but I say you are looking actively, taking it very serious, that you are going to have to move on, because this is not sustainable for your deen. For you just to miss Jumu'ah 20 times, or whatever. So you need to make an honest effort to find a better job that will accommodate you praying Salatul Jumu'ah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, will make a way for you. How can a sister go about finding a brother that also doesn't take pictures of living things, since this seems to be widespread amongst Ahlul Sunnah nowadays? No, there are brothers out there who don't think. So you're going to have to find a sister in a situation like that. She's just going to have to be upfront about things that she expects, and find herself someone who is also on the same page on that. There are communities, there are Salafi communities and so forth, that is something which is really frowned on, so that people don't do that. Okay, they don't take not just selfies and stuff like this, but they there are those, some of our brothers, there's many actually, you'll find some of the communities, they don't, even the brothers, the du'at, they don't make videos, it's only audio. Okay, especially, I would say, a lot of the students that spent time in Yemen, okay, in Damaj. I'm not saying all of them, but there are many, because the mashayikh in Yemen, their position is very strong about even dawah videos. You will almost never see what many of those scholars look like. They don't, all their thing is audio, and then they'll have things like this, and that's a big thing in Yemen. That when the Salafees in Yemen, they're very staunch about certain issues, like wearing pants is a big deal, kind of, to, they look at, some of them, they look at that as being a sign of Hizbiyah, because they live in a different environment, I would say. And, so they generally have a different mokif on some of those issues, okay? So even doing videos for dawah, they don't see any maslaha in that to them, and you won't see most of the Yemeni mashayikh. Or Yemeni mashayikh, most of I can't think of any of them that you will see by video. I listen to a lot, especially for khutbahs and stuff like this, and then a lot of the old classic ones. And you won't see them. If you don't know what Sheikh Mukhbar looks like, you won't see a picture, except for there is maybe like a picture out there of that was in the newspaper, and from his ID and things like this. But other than that, he was very, the Mashayikh in Yemen, they have a very strong position about that. They don't play. So a lot of their students carry that same thing, and you'll see that in a lot of the communities. So then I would say, for a sister in a situation like that, she's going to look for a spouse in those communities, from people who share that. If that's something that's very important to her and very serious for her, then she's going to need someone like-minded from those type of communities. Now, can sins cause anxiety, depression, and sadness? Absolutely. It's exactly what they do. And Ibn al-Qayyim writes extensively about that, the effects of sins, and many even contemporary scholars have written books about that. And you know it yourself. You feel it. The Prophet ﷺ said, those things, that basically the sins that they, more or less, if you want to paraphrase it, irritate your heart. It's that which it doesn't settle in your heart. And you feel that when you're doing something doubtful, or you're doing something plain and simple, it's sinful. You know it's wrong. You don't want anybody, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, you don't want anybody else to see that. Okay? So those kind of things, of course, they cause depression, anxiety, and grief. Now, and that's going to depend on the level of your iman, generally. If you have iman, fairly strong iman, you're going to feel that. You're going to feel sad when you commit sins and you're in sin. You don't feel good. You don't feel good about that. So that is causing you and helps you to repent from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hopefully. And also something I want to mention is that you also have to realize that some people really do have real issues of depression and anxiety and things like this. So that it's not always the evil eye, and it's not always the jinn. It may be that they actually have a mental disorder. So diagnosing that and distinguishing that is very serious. I just received a call from somewhere, and I won't mention where, a particular community and a particular person. They got my number and they mentioned that their child was having suicidal thoughts. So I immediately said, hey, listen, we need professionals. We need a Muslim professional. This isn't something you're going to just take to the imam. And Jazakallah khairan, you called me. I'm not even in the same city as you, but listen, you need to find. So I contacted a Muslim professional that I know is a mental health professional. I told him, I said, listen, Akhi, here's the breakdown. Please contact this family because their child is having this issue. So, those kind of things are a lot of times may cause maybe a need for a professional. Psychologist, Muslim psychiatrist, Muslim mental health professional, and whatever, counselor, whatever, social worker. No. If I'm serious about seeking knowledge and traveling for that, is it necessary for me to find someone for marriage who has the same mindset, or if she upholds the basic obligations, is that enough? Of course, if she upholds the basic obligations and she's ready to go on that journey with you, that's another thing you have to realize. So a sister could be a good sister. She doesn't want to be poor. She doesn't want to be a poor student. She's not going to be ready to go with you if you go to Yemen or Sudan or wherever and try to seek knowledge, or you go to Saudi and you're just living on a very minimal thing, enough to get a few books and eat. She might not be down for that. So you need someone who's like-minded, who will support you on the journey of knowledge. That's what's critical. It doesn't mean she has to be a talib al-ilm, because that's not necessarily the role. It's good if she knows something. So if you have children, she can teach the children, but it's not necessary a criterion that a student of knowledge has a talibat al-ilm, that he has a wife that's a student of knowledge. Rather, he needs a good, righteous, comforting, and supportive wife, How do we deal with someone who claims to be Muslim and doesn't pray and engages in major sins, essentially heedlessness and not worried about what's incoming? A person like this, you advise them, and if you cannot advise them, after you've advised them, you can leave them. If you feel that it's of no avail, you can stay away from them, because maybe if they're an open sinner and they can maybe cause you harm and cause you to maybe want to go to the club or do something crazy, or you see that there's no benefit and there's a greater benefit in leaving them, then that would be the best option under those circumstances. So what I say first is try to, because when you travel and you deal with real scenarios, and you deal with the real scenarios here, you're going to find many people who make the shahada and they don't pray. A lot of them, people in the Muslim ummah, in a general sense, they don't pray a lot. This is not new. This is, so how do you deal with it? And I remember asking this question to one of the mashayikh. I don't remember his last name. His name, we call him Sheikh Adnan. He was in Aden, when I first went to Aden, and I had enough Arabic but I remember asking him a question about the guys at work, because, there was guys who were guards, and they, didn't pray, but they were really cool, nice guys, Yemenis. And I was like, Sheikh, what should I do? Should I make hajr of them? Should I da-da-da-da? He said, no, be patient with them. And he said, how many people in Yemen don't pray? He was just breaking it down. So many people. And if you did that, most of the people would, there'd be so many people who would, you'd be cutting off, but rather show them and give them dawah and be patient with them and kind and show them. And so that's what's very important. You'll find a lot of extreme examples. I know brothers, especially brothers that are incarcerated. So a lot, maybe they're reverts, or maybe they're not. Maybe they were born Muslim, but they never prayed, or they sometimes pray. And then because of the circumstances being in prison, it's even more so, it can be harder to practice your deen, and they deal with a whole different set of laws. You're under the control of the prison authority, and then prisoners, probably in prisons everywhere, especially in the West though, but I'd say everywhere, they have their own code of conduct and laws. And if you get in the higher security prisons, they run it their own way. If you hear, I'm in New Mexico, the Mexican mafia in the bigger prisons, they run it. They command respect. So if they have certain laws that they run the prison in a sense with, and even the guards, they might say, hey, the nicest guy can be like, hey, I want you to kill that guard. And the guys will come out, and they will, when they have an opportunity, they will hear and obey. And they will also command respect. If you're just a youngster from a small city and you come to one of these big prisons, you messed up, and now you're locked up with the Mexican mafia, the Sorinos, all these big time gangs, you are better be on good point. You're probably either going to join them if you can, or you will be, you may be forced into a gang. So there's a whole different set of laws, even as a Muslim, especially if you're a Muslim and there's no other Muslims there, or there's very few, and you're very weak, then it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but you lose so much. So my point is that those various scenarios, they can affect you, how you practice and how you deal with people in their deen. So you're going to find, especially in an environment like that, you're going to find brothers like, yeah, I've been praying lately, meaning that he doesn't pray most of the time, and I'm trying to get back on my deen. So you deal with them on the level they're at. You don't say, Akhi, you missed the salat, kafir. But you can tell them, like I tell some of the brothers, I say, listen, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever leaves the prayer is disbelieved and stuff. So then they hear that. But I also don't beat them up. I tell them in a way that, hey, Akhi, come on back. Come on. We're all you have to do, the main thing I want from you is I want you to pray. Pray 5 times a day. Keep on this tawheed. I'm telling you about this tawheed. So you have to talk to them in a language they understand. You have to talk to them in a respectful, but in a kind way, to don't make them lose hope. They're already in a situation that can seem hopeless. I wouldn't want to be locked up with a bunch of sweaty men, and where you see violence every day. I don't care what level prison you are in the United States of America, and probably in any other country, in Canada, the UK, Switzerland, Sweden, whatever. You're dealing with violence. Violence is a part of prison life. And depending on the level of the prison and what, you're going to deal with a different type of violence in certain places. So you need to be able to help them to keep on their deen and survive that, and give them hope. You don't want, because you're talking to them one time a week maybe, or a little bit, you want to give them hope. Like, Akhi, I know you're struggling with them. Some brothers, they come and tell me, hey, I know I messed up in Ramadan. I didn't fast many days. I was getting high. They have real legitimate problems. And that lets you know how real the deen is and how real the problems of life is as well. So what do? You have to tell and encourage those brothers to come back. You don't beat them up. Say, Akhi, you got high? You were using Suboxone? You were doing fentanyl, crystal meth? Whatever. You don't beat the brothers up. No, you have to help them to try to get back on track. Akhi, yeah, I know it's a struggle. I haven't had that struggle, but man, I just want you to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you don't give up on Allah, Allah will not give up on you. Put your trust in Allah, and Allah will help you. Whatever you need, man. You've got to be able to help them keep on their deen. So that's what you want to think about when you deal with people who have major sins and major things. Don't look down on them and beat them up and ridicule them, but rather try to call them back to khair. Gotta stop drinking this coffee. I've been drinking coffee all morning. My coffee thing, it makes 15 cups. I drank one already, and this is the second 15 cup thing, so I gotta chill it out for the rest of the day, I think. Well, I do want to finish this last little bit, we'll see. Gotta heat it up. May Allah help us and forgive us. Ameen. Let's see what else is going on. I'm gonna have to go pretty quick here. Let's see. Serious about seeking knowledge. They would deal with someone who claims, Barakallahu feek, sorry, could you recommend some of those communities, as I don't know many du'at like that. I don't know. But there, like I said, those communities, for example, in Canada, I know that there are those communities that they are generally with probably Sheikh Yahya. They are with Sheikh Yahya Al-Hajooree. So their mokif is going to be very strong. Their du'at, their callers, their imams have a very strong position about picture taking and things like this. Okay, and even doing videos and stuff. You could contact those places, but I think you're going to need to be known. They're not just like, oh yeah, we got, as a sister, it's easier than a brother, I think. But that doesn't mean you're going to necessarily find something good. I think what's more important is you find somebody who's good in their deen in general. And you can, when you have sit downs, you can discuss those things and you can work those things out and navigate. If that something is a real important thing that you cannot accept, well, then you're going to have to find someone who's exactly on that same page. But if it's something that you don't feel comfortable and you're hoping that, hey, this is something I'm uncomfortable, maybe the brother will say, yeah, I can give that up. I do occasionally do that, or, whatever. And, but he's a good brother. He's on the deen and he has good, and something of his background or whatever, and know something from the people, then, you can work that out. So I don't know. Because I'm just not tied in with any of the communities. The only communities I kind of know is a little bit in Seattle, Washington, which is totally different than that. It's not like a lot of the Salafi communities in Philly and other places in America. Washington State is very, very different environment, and so forth. How do we dispel this widespread murjia amongst the Muslims who say Iman is in my heart and only God can judge me? By teaching the people the Sunnah, teaching the people the Aqeedah of Ahl Sunnah. That's how you dispel it. People are only going to come through that through knowledge. So you teach that in the knowledge. You're not going to teach a lot of people, if they don't want to have anything to do with the knowledge, the masjid in the first place. You're not going to be able to reach those people that are in the marketplace. A sister, she's wearing a mini skirt and the makeup. She doesn't want to, unless Allah favors her with guidance to come back, and you don't know when and you don't know if, that you're not going to dispel that. But what you do have the ability to do is you have the ability, if you have knowledge, to teach in the masjid or teach in the platform that you have, to teach and disseminate the correct aqeedah and methodology of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah regarding Iman wa ghayr Iman. Drinking water in the restroom? No, don't drink water in the restroom. Should we enjoin the good and forbid the evil in a masjid that is doing bid'ah on Jumu'ah in front of the people? No. That's going to depend on the level, but in general, no. Don't get up and, if it is something which is a serious munkar, that like is kufr or something. But other than that, no. You should approach the imam after Jumu'ah if you have the ability, and depending on the community. I mean, if it's a community, it's an Ashari community, and there's something about sifat. Well, they're probably aslan, most of the community is on that. You had to pray Jumu'ah out of a hajjah. You're probably not going to pray Jumu'ah with them again. But you can say, Sheikh, why do you say that? Whatever. You can command the good and forbid the evil in that way. if you have the ability to do so, and if there's wisdom. But no, don't blast the imam out. There's almost never any good from that way, and that way of approaching commanding the good and forbidding the evil and stuff like that, by openly blasting the people. And people, you want people to accept it. That's the whole purpose. It's not the purpose of you to prove how loud you can speak, or that you're stronger than the imam and you can arm wrestle him or beat him down. That's not what it's about. It's about calling him to khayr. Yeah, the doctor's lab, I do need to check. I don't know if they sent me the exact flyer. I'll post it when I get it tonight, because I'm not exactly sure the time, my local time. I need to know, but I think it'll be 9 o'clock a.m. my time. That's what I'm assuming, and I'm not sure in the UK if that's 6 o'clock at night. I'll find out, and then I'll post it, because I'm not really exactly sure about all those things now. What do we say to someone who says Sheikh Fawzan calls Sheikh Al-Albani? I mean, who cares? Honestly, whatever. Okay, just say okay to them, and then keep it pushing. I mean, it really doesn't matter. People say all kind of things, and one of the things that I'll end on this is there's a lot of cut and paste videos. I've seen some of those videos. Matter of fact, even recently one, and it had that exact title, and it said Imam Fawzan says Al-Albani is a murjia kadab, a lying murjia. Okay, and the problem that you'll find with a lot of these types of videos is they cut and paste. That's why you have to be very careful. They will cut and paste, and what they will do is a lot of the hizbis. Now, this is a trait of the hizbis. I want you to understand. What they will do is they'll take someone's general speech. Maybe a question was asked, and it could be something that has to do with the Aqidah or a statement or something of another scholar. It could be. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And then what they will do is then they'll post and they'll say, Sheikh so-and-so said Al-Albani is a lying murjia. Big slander, big thing. Or Sheikh Rabi is this and this and this. Sheikh Rabi said this about Fawzan. This one said this about this. But yet, why does Imam Fawzan, when he would come to Medina, of course, he would visit Imam Abdul Masih al-Abad. He would also visit in those last years. The last year I was there, because Sheikh Rabi, I think, had just come back there, moved there, and he would visit him. He would visit Sheikh Rabi. So if he's saying that he's a lying murji, I don't think he would probably be doing that. They may not agree in some details about Iman, but my point is the people blow that up, and especially the Hizbis, because they like to see fighting, because they want to say that, hey, we're from Ahl Sunnah, we love Imam Fawzan, and those guys are murjia. Those guys have al-fadh we don't agree with. Those guys don't make takfir to the one who leaves the prayer. Those guys this. Those guys, and this is, you'll find this a lot. So those kind of videos I would be very careful of. I would be very careful, because a lot of times when you listen to it, you'll see that they're taking general speech and they're applying it to an individual. Let me give you one last example. This happened to me, and that's why I stopped letting people cut and paste and make snippets of my videos. Because one of the brothers, may Allah forgive us in him and bless us in him, he made a video from my general speech of refuting this blind following and ta'assub and all these things. And then he said, Khalid Green, he took part of my speech and he made a video. Khalid Green says Abu Khadija, da-da-da-da. Or Khalid Green says S-pubs, da-da-da-da. So I said, Akhi, I didn't say that. I said, you better take that down, or I will pray to Allah to humiliate you. So then he took it down and he said, I'm sorry. Why? All this does is cause discord, because how do you know that that's who I'm talking about? Be careful of taking general speech and then you making the implication. This has caused so much fitna between Ahl Sunnah. So many scholars, they might refute a particular point and then the people will apply it. They say, he means Sheikh so-and-so. He says Sheikh so-and-so is a kelb, is a dog. The people do this. So be careful of that. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Almighty to accept our good and forgive our evil. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.